Johnny Carson was in the middle of his monologue when an audience member stood up and said, "Mr. Carson, I need to tell you something." That sentence started one of the most unexpected moments in television history. The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Studio 6B at NBC in Burbank, California. Thursday night, March 1978. The familiar rhythm of America's favorite late-night show. Johnny's opening monologue, the audience's laughter, Doc Severinsen's orchestra playing bumper music, Ed McMahon's booming laugh punctuating the jokes. Everything was routine. Everything was safe. Everything was exactly what 30 million viewers expected when they tuned in at 11:30 p.m. Johnny was 5 minutes into his monologue. A joke about President Carter. The audience was laughing. He was holding his blue cue cards, that trademark smile on his face, the timing impeccable after 16 years of hosting. "So Carter says to Congress," Johnny began, and then stopped. A voice from the audience. Not a heckle. Not a laugh. Something else. Something quiet but insistent enough to cut through 300 people. "Mr. Carson." Johnny's smile faltered. He looked up from his cue cards, squinting past the stage lights toward the tiered audience seating. "Mr. Carson, I need to tell you something." A man was standing. Third row, right side. Maybe 50 years old. Brown jacket. Ordinary face. Hands trembling. The audience members around him were turning, confused, annoyed that someone was interrupting the show. Johnny lowered his cue cards slowly. The smile was completely gone now, replaced by genuine confusion. "Sir, we're in the middle of—" "I know," the man interrupted, his voice shaking but determined. "I know, and I'm sorry. But I drove here from Phoenix. I've been trying to get tickets for 2 years. And I need to tell you something before I lose my nerve." The studio went silent. Not the comfortable silence of a joke setup. The uncomfortable silence of something going wrong. Ed McMahon shifted in his chair beside the desk, his jovial expression replaced by concern. He glanced at Johnny, then at the man, then toward the producers standing off stage. Johnny made a decision. He set his cue cards down on the desk. He looked at Doc Severinsen and made a subtle gesture, "Hold the music." Then he turned to face the man fully. "Okay," Johnny said, his voice steady, professional, but with an edge of genuine curiosity. "What do you need to tell me?" Carson stopped mid-monologue. The entire studio froze. The man took a shaky breath. "My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm a veteran. Vietnam. I came home in 1971. And I've been struggling. Real bad. For 7 years. The audience was completely still now. No coughs. No shifting in seats. 300 people holding their breath. "I'm sorry to hear that," Johnny said gently. "But Robert, we have people you can talk to. There are resources. After the show, we can—" "No," Robert interrupted again, more forcefully this time. "You don't understand. I need to tell you. I need to tell everyone." His voice cracked. "I was going to kill myself tonight." A collective gasp rippled through the studio. Ed McMahon's hand went to his mouth. Doc Severinsen lowered his trumpet completely. The cameras, still rolling because no one in the control room knew what to do, captured every second. Johnny didn't move. He stood behind his desk, both hands now flat on the wooden surface, his full attention on Robert Mitchell. "I was going to drive home after this show," Robert continued, tears streaming down his face now, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them in for years. "And I was going to take all the pills the VA gave me. I had them in my car. I had a note written. I said goodbye to my dog this morning because I knew I wasn't coming back." The audience was crying now. Openly. Women with hands over their faces. Men with eyes glistening. The typical Tonight Show atmosphere of light-hearted entertainment had vanished, replaced by something raw and real and terrifying. "But then I was sitting here," Robert said, "watching you do your monologue, watching everyone laugh, and I thought, I thought maybe if I could just tell someone. If I could just say it out loud to someone who might understand. Maybe. He couldn't finish. His legs buckled slightly and he gripped the seat in front of him for support. Johnny Carson had interviewed presidents, movie stars, the biggest names in entertainment. He'd handled difficult guests, awkward moments, technical disasters. But nothing in 30 years of broadcasting had prepared him for this. He made a decision that would define his legacy beyond any joke he ever told. Johnny walked out from behind his desk. Not the casual walk he did during comedy bits. A purposeful stride. He walked across the stage, down the 3 steps to the studio floor, past the front row of the audience, and directly to Robert Mitchell in the 3rd row. The control room erupted. Director Bobby Quinn was screaming into his headset. "What is he doing? Do we cut? Do we go to commercial? Somebody tell me what." "Keep rolling," producer Fred de Cordova said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "Just keep rolling." Johnny stood in front of Robert, close enough to touch him. The cameras scrambled to adjust angles. The audience members between them leaned back, creating a makeshift aisle. "Robert," Johnny said, his voice low but the microphones caught every word. "I want you to look at me." Robert looked up, tears streaming down his face. "You're not going home tonight and taking those pills," Johnny said firmly. "Do you understand me? You're not doing that. You don't know what it's like." Robert sobbed. "The nightmares. The guilt. You're right. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I know this. Standing up in front of 300 people and 30 million viewers and asking for help is the bravest thing you could have done. And I'm not letting you walk out of here alone." Johnny turned to look at Ed McMahon, still sitting at the desk. "Ed, call Dr. Sherman. Right now." Ed nodded and immediately picked up the phone on Johnny's desk. Dr. Murray Sherman was a psychiatrist who had appeared on the show several times, discussing PTSD in veterans. He lived 20 minutes from the studio. Johnny turned back to Robert. "You're going to sit backstage with some people who are going to help you. Real help. Not just words. Actual help. And you're not leaving this building until we know you're safe. Are we clear?" Robert nodded, unable to speak. "Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead." Johnny reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. He took the pen from his breast pocket, the same pen he used to sign autographs, and wrote something on the back of the card. "This is my private office number," Johnny said, handing the card to Robert. "Not the studio. My office. If you ever feel like you're going back to that dark place, you call this number. Someone will answer. Someone will help. Day or night." Robert took the card with shaking hands, staring at it like it was something holy. Johnny put his hand on Robert's shoulder. "You interrupted my monologue," he said, a slight smile breaking through the intensity. "That took guts. Don't waste those guts on giving up." The audience erupted. Not in laughter. In applause. Thunderous, emotional applause. People standing, crying, clapping until their hands hurt. Ed McMahon was openly weeping at the desk, not even trying to hide it. Doc Severinsen had tears streaming down his face. Johnny helped Robert to a seat, then gestured to 2 production assistants who'd been standing frozen in the wings. "Take him backstage. Stay with him. Get him water. Dr. Sherman will be here soon." As Robert was led away, still clutching the business card, Johnny stood in the audience area for a moment. He looked at the 300 faces staring at him, no longer seeing Johnny Carson the host, but seeing something else. Someone else. He walked back to the stage slowly. Climbed the 3 steps. Returned to his desk. His blue cue cards were still there, the jokes about President Carter suddenly seeming ridiculous and small. Johnny looked directly into camera 1. His eyes were red, his voice rough when he spoke. "Folks, I don't know what just happened. I don't know if that was supposed to happen or if we're all supposed to pretend it didn't. But I'm not going to pretend. He paused, collecting himself. There are men and women who served this country, who saw things none of us can imagine, who came home to a nation that didn't know how to help them. And they're suffering. Quietly. Alone. In ways we don't see. Another pause. If you're watching this tonight, and you're in that dark place that Robert talked about, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not alone. You are not broken beyond repair. And asking for help is not weakness. It's strength. He held up one of his cue cards. I've got 15 more minutes of jokes written here. Jokes about politics and celebrities and all the silly things we usually laugh about. And we're going to do those jokes, because laughter matters. But what just happened matters more. Backstage, he made a choice no producer would have ever allowed. The show continued. Johnny delivered his remaining monologue jokes. The audience laughed, though the laughter was different now, softer, more grateful, like people who'd witnessed something sacred and needed to return to normalcy slowly. But between segments, during commercial breaks, Johnny was on the phone. Calling contacts. Calling friends. Making things happen. Dr. Murray Sherman arrived 40 minutes into the show. Johnny left Ed to handle an interview segment, and went backstage himself. He sat with Robert and Dr. Sherman for 20 minutes, missing his own show, while they made a plan. Dr. Sherman would take Robert to a VA facility that specialized in PTSD. Not the overcrowded, underfunded ones. A private facility where Dr. Sherman volunteered. Robert would get real help. Real treatment. How am I going to pay for this? Robert asked, the pills in his car temporarily forgotten, replaced by practical worry. You're not, Johnny said simply. It's handled. I can't let you. You can and you will. Johnny interrupted firmly. You served your country. Your country is going to serve you back. That's how this works. When Johnny returned to finish his show, he was different. The audience could see it. The cameras could see it. America could see it. The episode ended not with the usual light-hearted banter with Ed and Doc, but with Johnny sitting alone at his desk, looking into the camera. Before we go, he said, I want to give you a number. He held up a piece of paper. Veterans Crisis Line, 1-800-273-8255. If you need help, if you're struggling, call them. They'll listen. They'll help. He set the paper down. And if you know a veteran who's struggling, don't wait for them to ask for help. Reach out. Check on them. Be there. The show ended. The studio emptied. But Johnny stayed. But this was the moment no one in the studio, nor anyone at home, ever saw coming. 3 days later, the network received over 10,000 letters. From veterans. From families of veterans. From people who'd been in their own dark places and had been pulled back from the edge by what they'd witnessed on television that Thursday night. Johnny read every single one. He answered dozens personally. Robert Mitchell stayed at the VA facility for 6 weeks. He went through intensive therapy. He learned coping mechanisms. He discovered he wasn't alone. There were dozens of other veterans there, fighting the same battles, carrying the same guilt and nightmares. When he was released, stable and committed to ongoing treatment, Johnny invited him back to The Tonight Show. This time, Robert sat in the guest chair. Not as a desperate man interrupting a monologue, but as someone with a story of survival to share. You saved my life, Robert said on camera, his voice steady now. No, Johnny corrected gently. You saved your own life. You stood up. You asked for help. That's all you. I just answered. Johnny reached into his desk drawer and pulled out that business card, the one he'd given Robert months ago. I'm keeping this, Johnny said. As a reminder that sometimes the most important moments on television have nothing to do with entertainment. The audience gave Robert a standing ovation. Johnny stood too, shaking Robert's hand, then pulling him into an embrace. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. After that night, Johnny kept the Veterans Crisis Line number on his desk. He mentioned it periodically, casually, between jokes. Thousands of veterans called because of those mentions. The business card stayed in Johnny's desk drawer until his final show in 1992. When he retired, he had it framed with a small plaque. Robert Mitchell, March 1978. The night entertainment stopped and life began. Robert Mitchell is still alive today. Still in treatment. Still fighting. But still here. Because one night, he stood up and asked for help. And Johnny Carson listened.